Thank you very much, Your Worship. So you have already gone through the main pieces here, so I guess you have done the Clerk's Department piece. I will call up Ryan Odesco at this time, Manager of Public Works, to speak to the non-statutory public meeting backflow prevention bylaw.
Good afternoon, Mayor Post, members of council, and members of the public. Today I'm here to speak about the proposed backflow prevention bylaw. First, I'll start with a little bit of background information. The cross connection at a high level are actual or potential connections between a potable water supply and any source of pollution or contamination. It can be a bypass, a removable section of pipe, a changeover device, or any other temporary or permanent connection through which backflow might take place. Cross connections are in every drinking water supply system. Some of the most common examples of potentially hazardous cross connections are boiler systems. These systems are common in ICI properties, and back pressure may occur due to thermal expansion. Using the domestic water line in absence or failure of backflow valves or thermal expansion tanks. Some boilers and other heating systems may be treated with chemicals. Coolant tanks and other industrial processes. Firefighting equipment and sprinkler systems are common in most ICI properties and susceptible to stagnant water conditions. Lawn irrigation systems and swimming pools may have water introduced into the public distribution system during backflow events. And car washes are a good example of a process that have water, soap, wax, and chemicals introduced into a single process line. What is a backflow? A backflow is when the flow of water travels from a high to a low pressure area. Backflow in drinking water systems occurs when there is a drop in pressure in the water distribution system. This may occur during breaks or repairs to the water main, firefighting activities, or reductions in supply pressure. It is important to note that the town of Orangeville relies on two separate types of storage to supply day-to-day and fire flow demand. In-ground reservoirs, such as the Dudgeon Reservoir on Blind Line, and above-grade reservoirs, such as the Tower on B Line. The key note here is above-ground reservoirs are not as susceptible to significant drops in pressure, since the operating pressure of the water distribution system at the site of servicing is engineered and designed based on the height of the water column inside the water tower in those areas being serviced. As the water level declines, there are slight reductions in operating pressure to that service area. North of Broadway from Blind Line to Highway 10 and east of Highway 10 rely on in-ground reservoirs. The slight problem with in-ground reservoirs is that operating pressures are supplied 24/7, 365 days a year on the continual operation of pumping equipment. Although we rarely experience catastrophic or prolonged power outages or equipment failure, the method of sustaining pressure is much more susceptible to failure due to mechanical reasons, as opposed to water towers, which do not require power or mechanical equipment. These areas of town are more susceptible to pressure fluctuations due to fire flow events, and would be considered higher risk at backflow events from cross connections. Also, when a water main's pressure reduces, it will attempt to equalize, or if for maintenance activities, the town must drain a pipe. The water from neighboring services in the shutdown area that have water may drain private plumbing in a vacuum situation. So just a little bit of background on why this is important. Many of the requirements and outcomes in the water industry you see today are directly connected to the May 2000 Walkerton E. coli outbreak and the January 2002 report of the Walkerton Inquiry by the Honorable Dennis O'Connor. In Chapter 7 of the report of the Walkerton Inquiry, the Honorable Dennis O'Connor states that as part of their comprehensive distribution system program, water providers should have active programs working together with building inspectors and public health agencies to detect and deter cross-contamination, and distribution systems should have regularly tested backflow prevention valves that can prevent or at least isolate incursions. Ontario is recognized currently by many as being a world leader in issues pertaining to drinking water. An example of a backflow issue is on March 7th, 2005, a drinking water advisory was issued pertaining to the 30,000 residents of the city of Stratford after a red foamy substance from a car wash was discovered in the drinking water system. Business and schools shut down and some residents were unable to drink the water that came from their taps for a number of days. Upon investigation, it was discovered that a properly installed and functioning backflow prevention device could have prevented this event from happening. I think it's important to note that this happened over 20 years ago, and us and other municipalities still use them as an example in presentations and examples to this day. Stratford has taken the steps to address a backflow program, but we still often talk about Walkerton and Stratford. Today we are at public meeting and we plan on returning on October 27, 2025. So I already spoke about the quotes from Chapter 7 of the report of the Walkerton Inquiry. And I just wanted to point out that this is not actually a mandatory requirement to have a specific bylaw in place for backflow prevention. However, the town receives inquiries continually from the MECP and external auditors as a best practice to the status of our existing backflow bylaw, which we currently do not have. Currently, the town has included backflow installation and testing requirements on site plan approvals for developments across town. This has been effective. However, it does not necessarily cover all hazardous properties based on when they were developed. The bylaw introduced has been developed following guidance from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Ontario Waterworks Association, Ontario Municipal Water Association, and the Canadian Standards Association, which is CSA. To date, there are over 55 Ontario municipalities with backflow bylaws that are similar, including some of our neighbors like the Town of Mono, Region of Peel, City of Guelph, Region of Waterloo, Centre Wellington, and many others. So the backflow prevention bylaw would identify moderate and severe hazard facilities as defined within the Canadian Standards Association B64, require completion of an initial backflow preventer test and inspection report within 3 years of the date when this bylaw comes into effect, and annually thereafter by a qualified person. There are over a dozen accredited training institutions that offer the full and recertification courses to become a qualified person, and the OWWA maintains a public listing of all qualified professionals on their website. The backflow prevention bylaw would require the repair of malfunctioning backflow preventers and the completion of a cross-connection survey within 3 years of the date when this bylaw comes into effect and every 3 to 5 years thereafter, depending on the hazard classification of the property. Just for an example, a moderate hazard as defined through the Canadian Standards Association would be any minor hazard connection that has a low probability of becoming a severe hazard. And that category includes, but is not limited to connections involving water where the aesthetic qualities of the water have been reduced and under certain conditions can create danger to health. So for enforcement will be tracked by the town. The forms required for backflow testing and cross-connection control surveys will be required to be sent to the town for tracking and storing certificates to ensure compliance with CSA B64, Section 8, which speaks to the maintenance and field testing of the backflow preventers. Enforcement of the bylaw in the situation of non-compliance will be by officers. And next steps, the proposed bylaw is attached to the report on tonight's agenda. Staff will review comments received following this meeting and adjust the bylaw as necessary. The bylaw will be brought before council for consideration on October 27th, and if passed, the bylaw will come into effect immediately. Staff would prepare notices to affected property owners as soon as possible, and property owners with a moderate or severe hazard would have 3 years to install and comply with this bylaw initially. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I think some people would find a presentation about water a bit dry. I thought it really flowed well, so thank you. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding this matter? Any members of the public connecting remotely must raise their virtual hand to indicate their intention to speak. If connecting via telephone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to talk about water. Yeah, please come forward. You have to come to the microphone for online. Thank you. If you could just state your name and address. Can we turn the mic on?
Hi, I'm Marilyn Stewart, and I live at 248 Kensington Place. I just don't understand. Is that like if you were backwashing your pool?
Ryan, would you like to?
Typically, residential properties wouldn't be a concern in the backflow bylaw. If there was repeat offenses, let's say determined through non-usual processes or something, we could consider looking at residential properties, but the average residential homeowner would never have to worry about this bylaw.
Okay, I just didn't understand. Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay. Seeing none, is there any questions or comments from council at this time? Councillor Andrews? I've turned my...
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Indusco. Thank you for your report or presentation to council and the general public here. I'm glad that you ended up having the question from the general public regarding the residential component, because I was going to ask something very similar. When you have a backflow prevention device, I was wondering, okay, is this going to be very similar to what we just went through with the water meters? Is this something that we were going to have to end up asking residential property owners to install? There are those examples that you've identified. There may be some grease that could be, I guess, clogged in the drain system, and that's where you have a company that is removing that. Is that something that is similar to what you were expressing to the member of the public? And Mr. Chair, I also have one more question too. Thank you.
In that context, I think you're speaking about sewer,
Okay,
sewer laterals a little bit. I think the average residential homeowner, it would be very rare for us to look at backflow prevention in most residential homes. The concerns will be, our heavy industrial users, car washes, processes that would have a negative impact on public health. That's not typically something that would be seen on a residential property.
Okay, thank you for that clarification and through Mr. Chair. I zero in on a point here on page 139, and this is regarding the general manager, at the discretion of the general manager of infrastructure services. If a condition exists on a property the town determines to be minor or moderate of hazard, then there would be the potential of having their water supply temporarily shut off. Can you maybe walk me through very quickly in the general public, members of council, and how that would be implemented, just out of curiosity? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot. So.
I'm sorry, can I ask which section specifically?
This would have been section, it's on page 139. This would be section, I apologize, under administration and enforcement, number 4. And this is identified as B. If a condition exists on a property the town determines to be minor or moderate hazard, the town may be at the discretion of the general manager or designate shut off the water supply to the property.
Through your worship, just to Councillor Andrews, part of that we put in just to be able to have that ability to turn water off. The example was given about a car wash where it was black flowing into the system. If we're aware of an issue at a development where potential of water coming back, we want the authority to be able to turn that water off so it doesn't contaminate the drinking water system. It's localized and kept to one unit. And that's one of the nice things with our new water meters that we purchased. They detect backflow in the system. So if we do have somewhere where a residential house has frequent backwater, we may want to check that out to see what the issue is. As Mr. Indusco mentioned, a lot of it is areas where you have boilers, somewhere of higher pressure, where it may feed back into the system if they have a cross connection. So it doesn't usually happen with residential, it's more industrial, but we want to have that authority so if we do have potential contamination, we can turn the water off to protect the system.
Thank you. That's an excellent response, and I truly appreciate the clarification on that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews and Public Works team. Is there any further questions from council at this time? No, seeing none. The motion is written in the agenda that council receive report INS 2025-051 backflow prevention bylaw public meeting report for information. Can I have a motion to do so? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Stevens, all in favor? Thank you, everyone. So that brings us to item 9, the non-statutory public meeting sanitary discharge bylaw. Anyone who would like to speak to this matter, please call 1-647-374-4685 and enter meeting ID 928-4141-2202 £. Callers will be invited to provide their questions or comments following the conclusion of the presentation. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *9 to raise their hand and indicate their intention to speak, and dial *6 to mute and unmute when called upon during the appropriate portions of the meeting. Anyone who wants to be notified of further consideration of the topics, please submit your name, phone number, mailing address, and email address to clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca or call 519-941-0440 extension 2242 and reference public meeting backflow prevention bylaw INS 2025-051. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Ondesko. I don't have any puns for this, so you're going to have to carry the show by yourself.
Good afternoon again, Mayor, Post, members of council, and members of the public. I'm here to speak now about the proposed amendment to the sewer discharge bylaw. So I realized after there was a duplication in the slide on points 1 and 2, but the second point was supposed to speak to the stormwater system. So the purpose of this bylaw is the protection of the sewage system, drainage system, and all municipal systems include pump stations from corrosion, damages, and obstructions. The protection of the stormwater system, collection network, and all municipal stormwater infrastructure, including catch basins, stormwater management ponds, and maintenance holes from obstructions, contamination, and excessive sediment. This in turn protects the natural environment, the public, municipal workers, contractors, and property from hazardous conditions in our community. So for a little bit of background, the existing bylaw was last updated in 1996 and is almost 30 years old. The existing bylaw has a number of provisions to allow for overstrength agreements for sanitary discharge and no requirements for the pre-treatment prior to discharge. A number of the parameter limits set out in the existing bylaw are required to be lowered to meet industry standards. The existing bylaw is also lenient on oil and grit separator and grease trap inspections, maintenance, and cleaning, including vehicle equipment service sites, restaurants, and sediment interceptors. The town currently spends over $200,000 a year flushing and cleaning sanitary and storm mains due to excessive sediment, grease, and on cleaning sewage pump stations due to fog, fats, oils, greases, as well as flushing of disposable wipes and sanitary products. A little more background, specifically on the wastewater side of things. Currently, the water pollution control plant has sufficient capacity for handling flow rates entering the plant. On average, the town's daily flow is equivalent to 65.9% of the plant's rated capacity. This has since seen increased demand on the strength of the inbound flow due to more industrial processes, low flow fixtures, and reduced groundwater/rainwater infiltration into the sanitary sewer network. This diminishes the dilution of the incoming flow. This has resulted in increased strength of sewage. And for example, in 2024's annual report, we reported the average biological oxygen demand is 91.7% of the plant's rated capacity. The average chemical biological oxygen demand is 88.8% of the rated capacity. Average total suspended solids is 80.5%. And I still can't quite say that name, the KJ, so I'll just say average total KN is 74.8% of the rated capacity. Pre-treatment at future developments will allow the town to optimize existing processes to increase efficiency rather than significant expansion to increase treatment capacity. This slide is important as 10 to 15 years ago, the flow at the water pollution control plant was more concerning than the strength of the inbound sewage. As the municipality and community has grown and with increased water conservation methods, low flow toilets, extensive water pollution control plant upgrades, expansion, and capital programs to identify and eliminate inflow and infiltration in the wastewater collection system. The inverse effect is that there's an increase of strength in the inbound sewage. A common phrase that's been floated around a lot lately is the solution to pollution is dilution. And it's absolutely the truth in managing the strength at the wastewater plant. With potable water becoming an extremely valuable resource, we have to be proactive and find new ways to manage the strength in the wastewater beyond watering it down. The town is highly recommended by the MECP to undergo significant expansion in the wastewater treatment plant when inbound flow is expected to reach approximately 85% of the plant's total capacity. Due to the plant being landlocked, another expansion due to flow capacity would be one of the largest projects the town would be required to undertake in many years, either requiring significant expansion in the surrounding areas or an additional plant with significant rerouting of existing infrastructure based on future development locations. There'd be a lot of unknowns, so reducing plant strength and inbound flow through pre-treatment processes by external stakeholders and internal process optimizations are critical for the long-term growth of the town. So the updated sewer discharge bylaw will require properties that have existing oil and grit separators, grease traps, sediment interceptors, and dental waste amalgam separators to require completion and submission of a maintenance schedule and record of maintenance to the town. This requires the maintenance and clean out of these separators on an annual basis at minimum and complete maintenance as per the manufacturer's recommendations. This will help keep excessive sediment, grease, and contaminants out of the town's sanitary and stormwater network infrastructure, which ultimately reduces the town's cost in flushing mains, cleaning stormwater management ponds, and dealing with contaminated fill, etc. The sewer discharge bylaw update also indicates clearly when a private property owner is responsible for sewer lateral blockage. This portion of the bylaw largely remains the same to the existing bylaw from 29 years ago, but clarifies a little bit more that a blockage due to non-sewage material, regardless of location in a private lateral, is the responsibility of the discharger to remediate. The town is not liable for blockages on the public portion of the lateral if it's caused by grease, rags, wipes, sanitary products, something that a discharger shouldn't be putting down the sewer system. The bylaw update for Schedule A, restricted waste, sanitary and storm sewer discharge concentration limits has been broken down into multiple tables based on load-in limits, contaminant limits, daily limits, organic, inorganic limits, and storm sewer contaminant limits. The old schedule was kind of all mashed together into one big table and it was difficult to follow. This way you can pick what table actually suits your needs. The update for the requirement to pre-treatment for discharge into the sanitary sewer system for future properties or developments that exceed Schedule A of this bylaw. The overstrength section of the bylaw only applies to existing overstrength agreement. This reason for pre-treatment is to ensure that the water pollution control plant does not require additional costs and efforts to treat discharged waste from industrial processes, as these affect the town's environmental compliance approval limits and processes. These costs are extremely difficult to track and recover through overstrength agreements. For enforcement, the enforcement will be tracked by the town. The maintenance and service forms will be required to be sent to the town for tracking and stored certificates to ensure compliance. Enforcement of the bylaw in the situation of non-compliance will be by the officers. The proposed bylaw is attached to the report on tonight's agenda. The staff will review comments received following this meeting and adjust the bylaw as necessary. The bylaw will be brought before council for consideration on October 27th. If passed, the bylaw will come into effect immediately, and staff will prepare notices to affected property owners as soon as possible. Property owners with a moderate or severe hazard have 3 years to comply with this bylaw initially. And that's all.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Ondesko. So at this time, any member of the public connecting remotely must raise their virtual hand to indicate their intention to speak. If connecting via telephone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when called upon. Are there any questions or comments from the gallery here this evening? No? Seeing none? Anyone on the phone? No? Seeing none? Any questions or comments from Councillor? Councillor Sherwood.
Councillor Andrews is first.
Oh, Councillor Andrews, excuse me. Well, what about ladies first? Oh, you can't do it. You can't do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Ondesko, again, thank you so much for all the work that you do in providing this information to us this evening, and I really do mean that sincerely. I was really intrigued by what I read in this particular report, and as much as it will be coming to council in October, two things that really struck a chord and I know, again, a member of the general public, I think if I do recall, he said something about swimming pools, and I know that many of us who have either had swimming pools, there are those of us on council that do, there's a process that many of us have gone through in the past where you discharge, of course, what was deemed to be chlorinated water. And many of us who had a pool, I'm not sure if many of my colleagues have salt water, but that's what I switched to, was salt water. So it kind of ended up kind of negating that. So I guess the first question is the process. Is that something that falls under this particular proposed bylaw, that residents who have swimming pools that are discharging it at the end of the season, will they be potentially posing a infraction that would be falling under bylaw?
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Andrews, I have to find the specific section in the bylaw, but we do speak to the discharge of chlorinated water from swimming pools,
Okay.
hot tubs and spas. Section 16 speaks to it. No water or wastewater from a swimming pool, hot tub, spa, or wading pool, including rainwater resting on the tarp which covers any of the foregoing, shall be discharged to a natural environment in a manner that may cause or causes erosion, soil instability, or injury or destruction of trees and vegetation. I'm just going through the section real quick, Councillor Andrews.
Okay, thank you. And I think, the reason I'm posing this is for the, the general public who, there are a number of swimming pool owners in our community. And, as a result, this is going to potentially change their way of discharging, portions of their swimming pool water. And I think it's also a matter of the education side too as well, informing the general public on how they need to do it from a best practice perspective.
The way the bylaw is worded right now is the use of a dechlorination device would allow a homeowner to discharge into the storm sewer. We prefer that it's not discharged into wastewater, but the main concern is erosion, soil instability, and not having somebody discharge water from a swimming pool onto a neighboring property, essentially.
Okay.
So we do allow discharging into a storm sewer. The dechlorination pucks are relatively cheap. It could be found at most swimming pool stores. It might not be something that's typically used, but highly chlorinated water is not good for the environment as
Okay.
well.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll pose a question after my other colleagues will go through the process here.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I was surprised to see the percentage of the daily flow at 65.9. That's what I would assume you would think is a good amount. Where I'm heading here is, so I would say that we're probably in very good shape as far as reaching our targets, our new population targets, to be able to accommodate that without it being at a critical stage where we might have to talk about expansion again. So do you think with this percentage, we have several good years ahead of us without having to worry about that?
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Sherwood, absolutely in terms of flow. In terms of strength, if we were to expand and add multi-industrial processes, factories that, let's say breweries, for example, are really strong in biological oxygen demand, and right now our total rated capacity, we're at 91.7%. So depending on how we expand, how we grow, we do have a lot of flow available at the plant. Pre-treatment would allow us to keep our number as close to that 91.7% as possible. Major industries, this bylaw does ask for pre-treatment, which would mean that a discharger at an industrial process would discharge sewage that's similar to what you would expect at a residential or a small commercial property. This treatment should be done by the industry itself for us to avoid future expansion in that regard. So it's not so much the flow that we're worried about, it's the actual strength of the sewage.
And just to follow up, so when you're talking about the strength, again, I'm going to go back to our projected growth. Is that something that is concerning to staff, that it be quite critical to be close to the 100%?
Through you, Mayor Post, it's not at this time. The rated capacity is currently based off of our 2016 expansion. So that's based off of everything that was at the plant in 2016. We've not had major upgrades, but what we can do is have a lot of process optimization that helps us fight and treat that strength before it gets into the Credit Valley River. We can quite easily work with that when it comes to residential growth and demand. We're obviously going to always want to do small upgrades, small process optimizations and whatnot, but we don't need to build a whole new plant if you're looking at adding a significant amount of residential homes. We can add industry too, but we highly recommend pre-treatment of any new industry coming in to accommodate that.
Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. Okay, I have a question, and I'm not sure if I understand it correctly, but that's why you're here. So thank you so much, Mr. Ondescu. The sanitary discharge bylaw and backflow prevention cite protecting the natural environment as justifications for their implementation. So I'm wondering if these changes go beyond the Ontario Building Code, and would they then be considered green development standards and not be applicable under Bill 17?
Thank you, Chair Taylor. My understanding is that these bylaws must be passed by the municipality and are not necessarily protected under the building code or the OBC. They do not conflict. My understanding is that they do not conflict with Green Initiative standards. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I'm just wondering if they could be challenged later by developers as something that's extra on top of the building code's minimal standards.
Through your worship, I don't think they would be. They're a standard that's done across municipalities. Mr. Ondescu mentioned for the backflow preventers, there's about 30 municipalities, 5 or 6 in our immediate area that have it. Same with the sewer use bylaws. Almost every major municipality has them. It controls what gets deposited in the sewer, whether it's temperature, pH, and biological oxygen demand. So I think they do help protect the environment, but I don't think they could be appealed.
Thank you very much.
I just want to mention that the Ontario Building Code does require backflow preventers in some applications, in developments and buildings. But it's up to the municipality to have a bylaw for the recurrent testing and maintenance of said backflows. So they're supposed to have it, But once it's built and the building inspectors are gone, there's no follow-up for us to make sure it works at that point. This bylaw would address that piece.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that Mr. Indesco, I had posed this question in the previous bylaw presentation, and I guess we'll just do a hypothetical example here very quickly. You have a resident that, again, and you were very clear about the process, where if a resident has, say grease that has been built up, potential of it getting stuck in their system, they hire a company to discharge it, and it discharges into the main system that we have here in Orangeville. Is there potential obligation for that homeowner to inform the town that this has happened? Again, I know that, some of the other proprietors, the restaurants, and, the other professional agencies that have been identified may have a larger amount. But again, I guess under the umbrella of the property owner being responsible, what happens from their property to the town connection is really up to them. But I'm just wondering if that would be kind of an interesting best practice to consider as well.
Through you, Mayor Post, that's a good point. In my experience for residential users, the amount of grease that has to actually go through a system for us to notice it in the actual sanitary main
Probably
is
negligible.
enormous for the average homeowner.
Yeah.
We were to, let's say, camera the individual lateral because the homeowner has an issue, slow drains, they're backing up, they're saying that it's the town's fault. We would know immediately because the pipe size and flow is much less than what we see in the main. Typically, once grease hits the main, it'll flow. It floats, it sticks to the sides and top of the pipe. So if we go anywhere near a restaurant, we know from kilometers away that there's a restaurant upstream, right? For a residential homeowner, it would be such a rare occasion. I think I've seen it happen once since I started in the industry 10 plus years ago, where a resident had so much grease dumping down the drain that they backed up. Typically, it's rags, wipes, flushable wipes, those types of things.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. That's all I have.
Okay, very good. So seeing no further questions from council, the motion as written in the agenda that council receive report INS 20250-52, sanitary discharge bylaw, public meeting information report for information. May I have a motion to accept that, please? Councillor Sherwood, Councillor Stevens, all in favor? Very good. Thank you very much, everyone. And then we will move back to item number 7, which is the non-statutory public meeting for the right-of-way management bylaw. Anyone who would like to speak to this matter, please call 1-647-374-4685 and enter meeting ID 928-4141-2202#. Callers will be invited to provide their questions or comments following the conclusion of the presentation. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *9 to raise their hand to indicate their intention to speak and dial *6 to mute and unmute when called upon during the appropriate portions of the meeting. Anyone who wants to be notified of further consideration of this topic, please submit your name, phone number, mailing address, and email address to clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca or call 519-941-0440 extension 2242 and reference public meeting right-of-way management bylaw INS 2025-048. And now that that portion's over, I'll call on our Manager of Transportation and Development, Mr. Tony DeLuce. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. As Brandon sets up, he'll be making the presentation tonight. I wanted to read an opening remark just to kind of set the stage for this and give council as well as the public a little bit of background. The presentation you're about to see tonight is a culmination of discussion and collaboration with a number of divisions, including the Planning Department, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Bylaw, Clerks, Communication, and Transportation and Development. The process of preparing this bylaw began approximately 18 months ago and continues here tonight at this public meeting where we're seeking input from council and the residents of Orangeville. This new bylaw addresses many different things, including traffic management, permitted activities on the road and boulevard, permitting, fouling of the road and the right-of-way, storage of vehicles, materials and equipment on the road, parking restrictions, idling, sale of goods on the roadway. The aforementioned activities all have one common denominator, and that being the road and the right-of-way. It was determined early in the process that it was imperative to bring all matters related to traffic and permitted uses on the road into one common bylaw, the right-of-way management bylaw. This was deemed to be a more efficient way to administer the bylaw and reference the permissions and prohibitions, including the document all in one tidy location. After listening to the input of council and the residents tonight, staff will address any questions, comments, and concerns during question period, summarize the questions, and include and speak to them in a final report that will be presented at the November 10th, 2025 meeting. That'll give us a good amount of time to bring back any comments there may be tonight. And the resulting and proposed bylaw will be attached to that report. Therefore, and should council agree and adopt staff's recommendation, the new bylaw would come into effect after January 1, 2026, and when the ministry has approved the town's administrative penalties process, whichever is later. And certainly, Mr. Bramley is here tonight and could speak to that if there are any questions. Communications will be a key component to rolling out the new bylaw, and given the timeline for implementation, staff will work with the communications division and bylaw to roll out a plan to educate and advertise the newly created bylaw. Brandon will now deliver the presentation, and following, we'd be happy to answer any questions there may be. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Good evening, members of council and the public. My name is Brandon Maynard-Spassov. I'm the Transportation and Development Technologist with the town of Orangeville. I work in the Transportation and Development Department with Tony as a part of the Infrastructure Services Division. Tonight I'm going to be doing a brief presentation going over the proposed right-of-way management bylaw. It's a pretty robust bylaw, so this presentation is just meant to touch on a few of the key components. So before I dive into it, just wanted to give a brief timeline. Back in 2005, the current traffic bylaw was passed by council, and since then there's been over 70 amendments to the traffic bylaw. And then skipping forward to 2023, town staff initiated town-wide parking restrictions, and that included restrictions on one side of the majority of streets in the town. As a part of this bylaw, we're looking to carry that forward. And then in 2024, staff began working on updates to include additional safety features such as PXOs, line markings at crossings, and a schedule for school crossing guards. And as Tony mentioned, this bylaw has been put together with collaboration from our partners such as Bylaw, Public Works, Communications, Planning, clerks, and our partners in emergency services such as the OPP and Orangeville Fire. This presentation is the culmination of our efforts over the past 2 years or so. So just to give a definition of what the right-of-way is, the right-of-way is the town-owned property that is between private properties, and it includes the road itself. It includes curbs, sidewalks, the grass portion, commonly known as the boulevard, and everything in that area. So this bylaw is intended to update and repeal the current traffic bylaw, as well as repealing and including the idling bylaw and the sale of goods on highways bylaw. The traffic bylaw is 20 years old, and since the introduction of that bylaw, things have changed. There are new traffic measures such as PXOs that we utilize, community safety zones, and there's new vehicles on the roadways such as e-bikes and e-scooters. So the purpose of this presentation is to introduce the bylaw and highlight some of the key sections covered by it. So the first section that I wanted to cover was permitting. This section dictates the use of the town-owned right-of-way and what activities require permitting. Permitting is administered by the Transportation and Development Department, and permits are submitted to us to review, sign off, and monitor the work from start to finish. A couple of the permits that we administer are driveway widening and curb cut permits, This is to ensure compliance with setback requirements for street furniture, utility infrastructure such as utility pedestals, hydro transformers, fire hydrants, and tree setbacks. We also review it to ensure compliance with maximum driveway widths under the zoning bylaw in collaboration with the planning department. The road occupancy permits are also administered by us, and they're mostly related to construction activities such as work done for utility companies, paving of roadways or driveways, or portions of construction projects that require occupancy of the road, such as construction of entrances or connections to our services like water and sewer. The town collaborates with permit holders to ensure safety, pedestrian and vehicle access, and restoring the right-of-way after work is complete. The next part is the use of highways. So this section addresses the expected conduct for pedestrians or vehicles on the right-of-way. This section covers the conduct of said users on the right-of-way and covers activities such as crossing the road in appropriate locations and manners, not crossing construction or community barricades, riding single file on your bicycle and riding on the correct side of the road. These measures are in place to ensure everyone using the right-of-way can use it safely and comfortably. And as I mentioned earlier, this section for the sale of goods on highway is also going to be included in this bylaw and meant to replace the previously similarly named bylaw. And any person who would like to sell goods on the portion of the town-owned right-of-way or vacant lot must first gain approval from the town to do so. It's important to note that town-run events that go through the appropriate permitting, such as Blues and Jazz, the Farmers Market, Boulevard Cafes, and other events as approved by council, would be exempt from this section. So moving on to traffic regulations, under section 15, it covers community safety zones. As a part of the town's transportation master plan, which is currently under development, additional areas have been identified that we are seeking to declare as community safety zones. Wherever there are vulnerable road users such as seniors, children, residents with accessibility limitations, those are the areas that we'd like to focus on, and some areas that would be included are parks, seniors, buildings, schools, hospitals, and there are others that have been considered. Prior to this update, in the current traffic bylaw, we have 12 community safety zones, and as a part of this update, we're proposing 26. Some of those include Oak Ridge Drive, Feed Street, Northman's Way, and Alder Street, and there's a number of other ones that are outlined in Schedule L of the attached bylaw. A new section of this bylaw is multi-use trails and trailways. This section is intended to differentiate the different types of active transportation infrastructure owned by the town and what vehicles may use them. The term multi-use trail is used to reference a sidewalk or asphalt trail that is within the right-of-way. An example of that would be the asphalt trail on Riddell Road. And the term trailway is used to reference a sidewalk or asphalt trail that is outside of the town's right-of-way. So an example of that would be the rail trail. We would like some input from council on what types of vehicles would be permitted on specifically trailways, as our partners such as County Dufferin do allow some off-road vehicles such as snowmobiles, ATVs, and so on. Another new section that we have is for pedestrian crossovers. Section 24 covers PXOs, and it's also a new section, as I mentioned. Pedestrian crossovers are one of the new tools the province introduced to improve pedestrian safety. The town started off with a couple PXOs prior to this update, and now we're up to 6 with more to come. Some of the new ones that have just been rolled out are the one just outside on Broadway in Wellington, and the one commissioned earlier this month on Blind Line in St. Andrews Drive. PXOs have been in place for a number of years, but the town now has a PXO policy which allows us to review areas of concern and introduce new PXOs if they're warranted. It's important to note that there's different types of PXOs with varying levels of protection. At a baseline, they all include things like signage, pavement markings, illumination, and then areas with increased concern also will have rapid flashing beacons to increase visibility and driver awareness. Continuing with traffic regulations through sections 26, 27, and 28, these sections outline heavy trucks, weight limits, and half-load seasons. These sections are intended to give the town a greater level of protection over large trucks and other commercial vehicles on town-owned roads. The intent is to limit the roads in which some of those vehicles are allowed to travel to appropriate routes, and then keep them out of some of the commonly used residential areas that experience heavy truck traffic. Moving on to half-load season. Half-load season is a period of time typically between March 1st and May 1st, where ground conditions are wet due to spring thaw and roads are more susceptible to being damaged. The intent of half-load season is to protect our roads by limiting the weight of vehicles on those roads during that time. In the past, we followed the County of Dufferin's lead on half-load season, and we'd like to introduce it as a part of this bylaw to give us a little bit more control and to set those terms ourselves. It's also important to note that there are some exceptions to these sections of the bylaw. Industrial roads will be exempt from all of these sections, and these restrictions wouldn't apply to our partners' vehicles such as emergency services, garbage trucks, hydro vehicles, things of that nature. We want to make sure that they're able to still do their duties and not bound by these limitations. The next section I wanted to cover was section 31, and that covers encumbering, fouling, and obstruction of roadways. This section speaks to a number of different ways that our roadways are affected by different activities which damage or obstruct our roads. Some examples of restrictions we're looking to include under this section include depositing snow or other materials onto the roadway, construction or alterations to the right-of-way without permitting, and storing landscaping or construction materials on the roadway. There are also restrictions on storing equipment such as trailers, hockey or basketball nets on the road, and these types of things have had impacts on town road operations and winter maintenance. And it's important to note that these restrictions are not intended to prevent children from using the roadways for those activities. It's intended to prevent them from storing them there for long periods of time. So once you're finished playing, you move it off of the town right of way, and the restrictions wouldn't apply in that case. Next is parking, stopping, and standing. The parking prohibitions under these sections are pretty self-explanatory. They cover things like parking in front of hydrants or over sidewalks, parking where no parking signage is displayed, and so on. We're also looking to introduce new parking restrictions that would prohibit parking on a town-owned road for no longer than 24 hours. As well as restricting the parking of large vehicles and trailers in residential areas. Another new section that we'd like to introduce is parking consideration. Parking considerations have garnered a lot of interest over the years for residents who are doing projects that may limit their access to the driveway for things such as like paving their driveway. Parking considerations would allow the general manager of infrastructure services to permit a vehicle to park in a location that may otherwise be restricted for short periods of time. If approved, town staff would develop a new permit that would provide some consideration that would give residents some relief under those circumstances. Again, as mentioned earlier, the idling bylaw we are looking to repeal that and include that in this bylaw. The previous bylaw has been taken word for word and inserted in this bylaw, so there's no changes to it. It limits idling of vehicles for no longer than 3 minutes, with some exceptions for our partners as well. Vehicles such as like fire trucks, ambulances, garbage trucks wouldn't be subjected to these limitations. So in conclusion, adopting the right-of-way management bylaw will provide the town a greater level of control of activities on the right-of-way. It'll provide tools such as permitting to ensure compliance with minimum maintenance and construction standards. It provides an update to include new road safety tools. It better defines what is permissible on the right-of-way, creating less confusion and more interaction. And it improves safety on the right-of-way as well as improving the protection of town-owned infrastructure. When developing this bylaw, we were keeping in mind our core values of respect, integrity, team, and excellence, and we think that adopting this bylaw is the right thing to do. And that concludes my presentation, so thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to your questions and feedback.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate that. So at this time, any member of the public connecting remotely must raise their virtual hand to indicate their intention to speak. If connecting via telephone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when called on. So at this time, is there any questions from anyone in the gallery? Please come forward and state your name and address, and maybe we'll start back to front. If you're in the back, come on up first. And hi there. Just state your name and number, and if we could get the microphone turned on as well. There we go.
Thank you. My name is Angel Assidio, and I live at 223 Thompson Road in Orangeville. I have a few notes. So the only part of the bylaw that I have any concerns with is the 24-hour limitation on the parking. And the reason I do is in my opinion, it's a socioeconomic inequity issue, 100%. I know there was some comments online that it's insensitivity, but I actually strongly believe it's a product of necessity, that it's not, has nothing to do with being insensitive. Unfortunately, not everyone is fortunate enough to have a multi-car vehicle parking arrangement, and I just think that a blanket solution won't work in this town. And I do understand there's an issue. I do have friends that live on Abbey, where there's like, you know, they have a 4-car driveway and they park all their cars on the road. So I do understand that there is an issue that needs to be addressed. I do not think that this blanket solution is going to, I think it's going to impact members of this community differently. The other thing I wanted to mention was really the people that are going to be impacted the most are lower income individuals and families, seniors, disabled or injured people, which I have my fiance with me actually, as he wants to speak as well. He's a veteran from the Afghanistan war. He has a foot injury, and he's not able sometimes to move his vehicle within 24 hours, and he will speak in more detail to that. What else did I want to mention? I just wanted to know if there were any, there's this talk about these parking considerations or permits, but they seem to be related to construction on a house. Are there any thoughts or considerations to people with an injury or elderly or seniors or people who are not able to move their vehicles within that 24-hour period? If there's the possibility of a parking permit or something that could be arranged. The problem is that sometimes it's not always expected, right? Like if an injury flares up or there's an illness, that can't always be predicted. So it's not always a possibility to, you know, each time request a concession. And the other thing I just want to mention as well is something I just thought of today was that we often have parties at our house. We have people over, and we invite people to stay over so they are not drinking and driving. And if they are over and they have to move their vehicle within that 24-hour period so that they're not going to get ticketed, that really puts them in a bit of a situation, and us in a situation. I would not, as a responsible citizen, I would not, you know, condone that. And that's just something that I was wondering if anyone had thought of as well. Yeah, so actually, Jack's going to speak as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, first, if I could, just before
Sure,
you
Todd,
leave. So, yeah, first of all, really good to see you. Thank you
Good
for
to see you
being
too.
here tonight. The bylaw is not meant to penalize people, and yet when we make solutions, you always seem to do that. There's somebody that always finishes on the short end of the stick. In my mind, what the bylaw was trying to do on that line in particular that you were talking about, the 24 hours, It's about the people who leave their car on the road essentially from April to whenever, and are insensitive and don't leave it. And it really isn't their right to have, and this is me talking, this isn't council talking. We're having a friendly discussion, right? But in my mind, it isn't their right to leave their car for 5 or 6 months, and they do, in front of someone else's house or in front of their house. It's meant for all of us. All of us get to park on the street and utilize that spot. And although this may not be perfect, and I'm not advocating for it, this isn't passing tonight. This is a public meeting. We're accepting, and we're all going to have a debate, and everybody will get a chance. I think it's really important that we work on that and try and get it resolved. And if I could, people send me little texts and things and ask me to bring them up in the meeting, and you've brought this up here now, and I just think it's really interesting that, to your point, Angel, like in Toronto, for example, people have additional permits that they can essentially buy, right? And it allows them to have limited parking. This person has suggestions of where that could be and whatnot. But potentially that's something else that we could look into and, go ahead with the Toronto bylaw. So anyway, I appreciate your comments. I don't want you to go away and think people aren't listening to you, and they are, for sure. I don't know, anyone from staff, would you like to share as well? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, and it's nice to see you as well. And certainly we had thought of those. Putting it gently, for everybody that has, like yourself, that comes in, or others that have called, we've probably received 10 to 1 in saying that we can't have vehicles stored on the road in front of my house for more than 24, 48, name the number. We discussed the length of time with bylaw, and certainly there was less time kicked around, but we thought it was fair and equitable to put something out for council's consideration, and that was 24 hours. Should council direct us to go with 48 hours, we're happy to do that as well too. And I think your comment is well taken. This is a discussion tonight. It's to take back the feedback. We'll summarize all the feedback that we get tonight. We'll put it in our report in November 12th with the changes that we're directed to make.
Very good. Thank you very much, Tony. Angel, are you good? Okay. Do you want to keep working from the back of the room forward? Good evening. Yes, please just state your name and address for us. And
Jack Scott Ross Gilhooly. I live at 223 Thompson Road with the affable and lovable Angel Lucicio.
Well, welcome.
Fiance.
Welcome.
I'm going to spare you the editorialized, what price do you put on freedom, little manifesto, little jot notes have here, and we'll go back to my core, which is a military section, Commander. Let's just get right to the point. Section 42, love it. Urban growth, it happens. We got to do something about it, congestion. And for every he, there's a haw, every yin, there's a yang. I completely understand that. Not to mention, there's potential revenue too. And we all like to lower our property taxes. Yeah. Anyways, as the city grows, and quite frankly, I've never actually lived in a city that didn't have some kind of bylaw like this on the books. Hamilton, 72 hours. I know with a permit, it can go up to 7 days. Handicap permit, of course, which I have. So Section 42, I just want to kind of address that real quick. And is there, if anything, under consideration for medical, disabled Ontario blue permits that address special and medical needs? For example, like there are days where, there have been weeks, and they are the exception, not the rule, where I just can't get out of the house to move the car, even a foot. And it's a stick shift, and yeah, that's not happening if I don't do it. So, permits, capitalism, I wouldn't mind paying for the privilege, or perhaps maybe something in the middle, 7 days, 72 hours, 96. Again, pick a number like you mentioned, sir. And so I guess that's just more of my statement / question. Is there any consideration like this? I know Angel touched on it.
Again, this is a meeting. Would anyone like to comment on the possibility of such a thing? I'm sure council will have some thoughts later, but if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, through your worship. At this time, we're not looking at medical permits, but it's an option we can look at the future. One of the concerns we had too is the staffing and the manpower being able to document something like that, and trying to reserve your parking spot in front of your house Most houses have a driveway, a garage, they can park inside if it's an issue. So we'll look at it, we'll take feedback back, but most people do have a driveway they could park in, so I don't know if it's as much of an issue, but we'll look at it.
Okay, very good.
Just to that point, in Hamilton, they actually do have that no parking with the specific license plate between these two posts. I wasn't, my design was not that. Just anywhere on the street, I move the car back and forth. If I get a spot, that's great. If I gotta park down the street, okay. I'll make the walk, I have to. So it's not like we need special compartmentalized, private parking for Mr. Gilhooly, something to that effect. Again, with the disabled permits, I mean, it's kind of like I guess I don't want to call it the industry standard of, hey, I might need some assistance. Obviously, medical documentation can easily back that up, legitimate permits. So to that, I would say, please consider it. Thank you.
Very good. Listen, if something else comes up, you think of it, you want to contact, all of us are very approachable. Let's reach out, and this comes back to council in the next 6 weeks or so.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Angel
please.
mentioned she was very passionate about it. And you're welcome
great.
for me toning down her pitch that she gave me earlier.
Very good.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you for being here. Would anybody else like to speak from yeah, please come on up. Welcome. Just state your name and address for us all, if you could.
Thank you. I'm Denise Rogers. I'm at 396 Thompson, just down at the other end from Angel.
Yeah.
So in my little kind of section of where I am, everyone kind of has their own spot that they park in front. Our driveways are in the back of the house in the alley. So we park, a lot of us park in the front. It's kind of known where everyone has their little spot. So if we're looking at a 24-hour time frame, would that mean that if we're parked in there for 24 hours, on that 23rd hour, we can drive around the block and come back to our spot? And I'm not joking, I'm being honest on this, because, I've got a driveway that can fit 2 long, but I've got a household with 3 cars. So in the summertime, my daughter parks there. If she comes home from, school on Friday night and doesn't leave to go back out to wherever she's going till Sunday, then she's not compliant with the 24-hour rule. But there's really no one that is looking to park there. It just seems that we're going to be penalized for something that is not in demand in where we are in terms of needing more space. And then the second kind of question I have is, how is this going to be monitored, and who is in charge of monitoring this? Like, as a taxpayer, are we now paying another group to monitor these 24-hour rules? Is it, I hope it's not OPP that we're, expected to have resources
So it's a
diverted
great-
from there
Yeah.
to marking tires with chalk to come back in 24 hours and check on them, so.
So the back part of that question is, it's all report-based. So, other citizens will report on citizens who aren't following bylaws, the same way it's done now, right? So I could drive by your house and notice that your car is there for however period of time, get on the phone and report it in. That's how it's going to be, and then bylaw will service it. So from
So
a
we're-
taxpayer standpoint, there isn't a big adjustment, and the OPP, this is a bylaw for the town, the OPP won't have anything to do with it. In terms of the first part, have you gentlemen thought that part out?
Yeah, through your worship, and I guess, as you mentioned, it'll be more of a complaint base. Our bylaw people won't be driving around going, aha, you parked, let's mark it. It'll be more complaint based, so if you move it within 24 hours, there'd be no issue. But a lot of it would be the complaints. It's probably more the cars that somebody leaves for 3 days. That's when somebody calls bylaw and is concerned about it. It's not gonna be a proactive one, we're marking every tire in town and then going back at 23 minutes and 59 seconds to say, aha, we got you. No, it's
Just
more.
want to make sure that
It's
that's
gonna be
what
more
we-
complaint based, so.
So then is the burden of proof on us to say that we were not parking there for 24 hours because someone complained and didn't see that we had moved, gone to the store, gone wherever for 2 hours and then come back? Because, like I said, In front of my house is my daughter's car. In front of my neighbor's house is always that, the blue Mazda. And then behind that is the black, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All along our
Our head
street,
of
it's always the
bylaw
same
wants to weigh in, but I want to just share my thoughts for a minute. We frequently, as councillors, receive complaints from the public. And it may be right in front of your house and there's a red truck that's got a flat tire and it's been parked there for 3 months. What's going to happen is the first time it's probably going to be, hey, let's have a conversation. The second time, they keep offending, right? And we keep getting complaints, and the complaint base gets wider, and it's typically one issue. And it would be great to nip those in the bud if we could. And it's not meant to be draconian or hurt the residents or citizens in our town. We've all got enough problems and things going on in our lives. It's those people that are abusing it, and honestly, like I hear on regular issues frequently over and over again, and I'd love to solve it if we could. So it probably isn't you, but it might be your neighbor, right? It might be somebody else, and we'll find out. And Mr. Bramley, if you just wanted to share your thoughts, did you want to do that? Can he get in? Do I need to turn off? Oh.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is James Bramley, Supervisor of Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement. Through the discussions with Infrastructure and Transportation, when we're considering this 24-hour limitation for parking on the road, like it's been stated by yourself, Deputy Mayor Taylor, it's not meant to target every resident within the town. This is to address the concern that we've all heard about vehicles being left for weeks on end of not moving. The practice of how bylaw addresses these matters on how we would enforce this is, again, it's a complaint basis. We're not going to proactively be driving around every street and checking every vehicle to find out how long they've been parking there. The enforcement of that would be unrealistic. When we receive a complaint, the officer would be attending the residence and attending the property. We would record the location of the valve stems, and at the end of that 24-hour period, we'd be returning to verify whether the valve stems are in the exact same location. So the question of if a vehicle were to drive away, and yes, if you pulled in and out and those valve stems are not in the same location, we wouldn't have enough evidence to state, yes, the vehicle has not moved at that point. There are some municipalities that have a relocation factor built into their bylaw, but again, with the goal of not to penalize residents for using their space in front of their house and not parking months on end, this is a factor we're not really in consideration. So it's the location of valve stems at the end of a 24-hour period upon receiving a complaint to address the matter. I hope that answers that question.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bramley. Does that grab it for you? Is it? Yep. Okay. And just as one last thought, if you can think about it, if something is reported to council, which does happen frequently, I follow up and I follow up and I follow up, and I know my counterparts do too. We will fix it. So it's not meant to sound threatening. I just want people to know if they do have an issue, they will be heard, and we will make sure this is addressed. Yeah. Any thoughts? Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate the questions thus far and the responses. I do want to add some caution, though. When council approves a bylaw, whatever it is a bylaw. And the intent isn't for people to game the bylaw. The intent is that people aren't parking there for 24 hours. I will also note that currently we are complaint-based, and that is the intent. We do have citizens, though, that drive around town and make it their priority to list out infractions and share them. So I don't want people to get the impression that they're not going to get ticketed in these situations. There is a bylaw at whatever time council wants, and it will be enforceable. And then the last part that I want to mention is remind people that winter control parking is still in effect, where you can't park on the road. So that's something like if you're thinking about, okay, I can use this in the summer, you have to have an option for winter control.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mr. Smith. Any other comments or questions from the gallery? Yeah, please come forward. I've never seen you around town before, sir. Please state your name and number, your address. Good to see you, Alan. Thank you for being here. Oh, can you just give us a second? Just need to turn your, there you go.
How's that? I just want to say I'm in favor of a restriction, whether it's 5 hours, 12 hours, 24, 48. I spent 4.5 months this year looking across the street to see a white Toyota parked in front of somebody else's house that finally got moved. So that's a great thing. Totally unrelated, on the issue of right-of-way and obstructing it, I noticed last winter there's a fire hydrant 2 or 3 doors up the street. The resident was out there piling snow on top of the fire hydrant, and I wonder if something could be incorporated in this bill to prevent that, as well as preventing snow being dumped on the road and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Staff, did you want to talk to that?
Certainly, thank you, Chair Taylor. That is a great point. To be honest, there is a section that speaks to fouling of the right-of-way that we can include in there, but thank you for bringing that up. We had not initially mentioned it specifically, but we can.
And that being said, Tony, it's always great when residents will maintain the fire hydrants as well. I know not everybody is physically capable of doing so, and the fire department has come around and cleared, but to town staff, are they doing that as well, or is that strictly just a fire department? Ryan?
Through you, Mayor Post, Public Works Department, we do snow clearing of the fire hydrants, but obviously once the snow banks reach a certain level, our main priority is sight lines and street snow banks. We have to get to the fire hydrants first to clear them, so we do our best. We don't often get to the entire town, though.
Very good. Thank you for that. Any further questions from the gallery? Middle row, do you want to come on up? Yeah. Just state your name and address for us, please.
Hi, yes, my name's Barbara Whiten, 49 Cannon Court. I understand your thoughts about cars sitting, because I had a couple of cars myself on our street years back, that they sort of used the road as their parking lot because they had 2 vehicles. He had one for the winter, one for the summer. And so he would just park it at the very end of the street, and it stayed there all summer. And I get that that should not be done. This is not a parking lot, this is a street. But I think that people who are abusing, such as a guy with a flat tire and leaving it there for three months, or somebody that leaves a second car at the end of a driveway, you're also penalizing those of us who aren't abusing that privilege. I just feel that, that a 40 or a 24-hour window, it's not feasible for, especially in the summer when you have people up, family up, friends that come up from the city, from up north, and they're up here from Friday until Sunday or possibly Monday. It doesn't make it very welcoming as a town, I don't think. We already lost one side of the street for parking, so parking is limited for all of us.
So would your suggestion be 48?
Sorry?
Would your suggestion be 48 hours?
I would think 48 minimum.
Okay.
Like you have long weekends, and sometimes people don't want to travel back on like a Sunday because of traffic and whatever, so they will wait and leave on Monday. I just think that 24 hours is way too short. I don't think that we really need to have this put into play at all, personally. But I do think that people who are abusing it, who call in as they are doing now to say that this truck's been sitting in front of my house for 4 days and hasn't moved with a flat tire, definitely should be addressed. Families are also, for different reasons, a number of reasons, have young kids, like when I say young, they're 20-year-olds or whatever that are still at a home, 25-year-olds who are still at a home. So they may, the driveway, some of the driveways are a lot longer now than they were when we moved into our house. Mm-hmm. So when we back up the drive, you know, back up, and we put the vehicle in the driveway. That's all the room there is. Granted, I do have a garage, but we also use our garage for things that we want to get done over the summer because you can't do it in the winter. Come the winter, come December 1st, both cars, not anymore because my husband passed away, but both cars, one was in the driveway, one was in the garage, the other one was in the driveway. So we always, yes, and I get the winter part of it. I mean, it's absolutely necessary that people have all vehicles off the road. But I just think that for those who are abusing the roads and the parking and that you're penalizing all of us, not just the people who are doing it. And I just I'd love to work with you
Your
somehow
comments are
and
very thoughtful and
figure out another way of
your comments are very thoughtful, and
doing this.
I appreciate where you're coming from. The restrictions that we're trying to employ, I don't think, based on the way you're describing your personal situation, I can't imagine that they're going to affect you. It truly is the abusers that we're trying to target. So appreciate your thoughts about the 48 hours. And again, this isn't being passed tonight. This is a discussion amongst people who live in a town together, so.
Right. So again, like the other lady said, you know, like if somebody was to pull up, say in front of my place, and then took off for the afternoon shopping and came back, does that start the 48 hours again? Or if they're even gone for 10 minutes, does that start the 24 or 48 hours again? You know, like, how do you figure that out? How do you differentiate that? And again, I just think for those who are abusing, it shouldn't have to be affecting all of us who don't abuse it.
Okay. James, did you want to weigh in on that again? Where?
And again, as I stated, when we determine whether a vehicle has been parked for 24 hours, an officer attends the vehicle, we record and take photographs of where that valve stems are on two tires. So if the vehicle were to move or drive away and come back, and the valve stems are at a different location, the vehicle is no longer parked for 24 hours. As we define what parking is as stationary and it has not moved for that period of time, and that's where that violation and the determination of that length would. It's part of the evidence of what we have to do and prove that a vehicle has not moved.
Okay. Great. Sure. If you could just put your,
Come winter, our street last year, we could not see out, backing out at all. No, because the snow was, I mean, I know it was, a bad year. I mean, it was worse up north, but we could not see out. The plows never, or very seldom, came by all winter. And we had snow on the road. Backing out, you could not safely see above or around those snowbanks. And I know that we're sort of on the edge of town because we're on like sea lines behind me. So I know that we get maybe more of the blowing snow than internal on Zina or Elizabeth or Faulkner. But I just like you to really look at the snow plowing and cutting back those snowbanks so that people can see safely out of their driveways without having an accident.
very good. The one of the sort of top three complaints we would get is snow clearing and just concerns about it.
Yeah.
If it happens over the winter, just reach out. We're happy to come out, look, and figure out what we need to do for your area.
Believe me, generally the guys down at the other end of the road, at the Public Works, they do a great job.
Good.
They do a great job. They really, really do. But
Again,
last year was so bad with all the snow we got, and people were just inching, and couldn't see.
So Public Works can be contacted or contact a member of council, and we'll be glad to look at that for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we're at the front row. Oh, no? Oh, I'm sorry, we're still in the second row. My apologies. Yeah, just state your name and address,
My
please.
name is Karen Vacavera. I live at 391 Rayburn Road in Orangeville, Montgomery Village, which, as you know, is a very unique area. I live where these people behind me live as well. And I noticed that first of all, I do support this restriction because I've had a car in front of my house for 5 months now. But the main concern I have right now, Mr. Smith mentioned snow removal and winter parking laws and things like that. I've lived in Orangeville for 25 years, and I've been complaining about parking in laneways for 25 years. This has never been enforced. The complaints go, they get swept under the table. And I'm not sure if this new bylaw is going to be also including the laneways in Montgomery Village, or is this just for roadways throughout Orangeville?
Ryan or Tony, did you want to?
Certainly, thank you, Chair Taylor, and thank you for the question. The laneways that you're referring to, are you referring to the laneways like behind Dogwood and behind Elderberry? Those lanes are already restricted. There's no parking in any of the lanes. And certainly they are, as Mr. Bramley suggested, give us a call, file your complaint, and we'll send a bylaw officer out there.
So is this part of it? Like, are the laneways going to be part of it? Because, yeah, like these laneways, our laneway in particular is constructed on a curve. Every laneway throughout Montgomery Village is straight. No one parks there. Our laneway, because it's on a curve, some of the property lines extend about 2 or 3 feet into the laneway. So people have called into the town and requested that surveys be done, and now they're parking in the laneway because their car is on 3 feet of driveway in front of their garage. They park parallel in the laneways through the winter. Bigger cars can't even get through the laneway. Fire trucks, you're talking about fire safety, things like that. I watched a fire truck trying to get around the corner in Montgomery Village the other day. He couldn't. He had to reverse and go around the other way. It's crazy. It is crazy. It's to the point, and I had a lengthy conversation with Mayor Post last year about this, and it was the same thing. Call bylaw, report it. We reported it almost every single night for the entire winter, and we saw 1 ticket on a car for the whole winter. They don't get removed, the cars don't get towed, and it's, as the other lady mentioned, snowbanks are 6 feet high. You can't see out of your driveway, you can't see down the roadway. It's a huge safety concern.
Yeah.
And people who do abide by the laws and park in their driveways and their garages can't reverse out of their driveway because there's a guy parked parallel behind you. And the problem is, Mr. Bramley, you mentioned you go online, you report it. Last year, you weren't in charge last year, but the reason we were getting last year was they were understaffed and they didn't have enough officers. And these problems happen at night, right? Winter parking. So as soon as the time hits at the end of the day, 11 p.m., everybody moves from the roadway to the laneway. And we have a lot of new residents who have moved in. They see one car parked there who got approval from the town because they had property line that was 3.5 feet, which I don't really understand how a vehicle that's 5 feet wide fits in a 3.5 foot spot, but somehow they were approved. And everyone else saw that person do it, and they all started doing it because people see one guy get away with it, and then everybody starts doing it. So it's a huge issue, and because you try to report it at night, bylaw doesn't see it till the next morning. So then first thing in the morning, those cars are gone again. So it's not being...
So you're doing a great job explaining a long-term problem, so much appreciated. Ryan, did you want to weigh in on this at all? Or sorry, James, excuse me, it's getting late. Go ahead, please.
Of course, and again, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I'm more familiar with the area. Last year, yes, we have had shortage of staff. As it stands right now, we do have a full complement of officers. When it comes to overnight parking, we have officers in from 24 hours essentially. We have full coverage during the winter hours. This is something we're going to be 100% addressing to go and evaluate. I am going to connect with my colleague Tony as well to ensure that we're looking at, again, the property lines and those areas that you're concerned. And I'd like to connect with you on especially that specific areas on that bend so we can address that and answer these questions for you.
Yeah, that would be great. And about my husband and I were saying...
We just have your mic back on again, or are you able to? There we go.
Initially, there are no parking signs in the laneways. The intent was no, so garbage trucks could get through, so fire trucks could get through. It's a safety issue. And this allowing people to get away with the, but 2.5 feet is my property line. That was never the intention, whether part of that's your property or not. It's a safety issue. And I think that needs to be looked at too, regardless of whether somebody can say, well, that 2 feet is my property, unless you're driving a Mini Cooper, how the heck are they parking a car there? Doesn't make any sense.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Go home tonight, put your feet up. You did a great job advocating for your street. By the way, the most beautiful leaves are on Rayburn in the fall, so go check it out. But thank you so much for being here. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think you're in good hands here. So, okay, front row. Okay, I've never seen you before. If you could please state your name and address.
Yeah, I'm new here. Matthew Smith, 38 McCarthy Street.
Thank you,
first, I have nothing to say about the parking situations. I have a 2-car driveway and 2 cars, and fits fine. But I found a error in one of the schedule ends for the PXO locations. The town actually has 7. It was said there was 6 listed, but there's actually 7. And the 7th one that was missed is at Church and Margaret Street, where the railway used to go through there and cross Church Street. There's a full, not a full, but there's a PXO similar to the one on Elizabeth Street. There's no lights, but there's a sign and the paint on the road. So there's a 7th that wasn't captured. But my comments tonight are specifically about Section 9 of the draft bylaw, the pedestrian regulations. So Section 9.6, there's a blurb here that says, every rider of a bicycle shall keep feet and hands on pedals and both hands on handlebars except for signaling. And I really don't understand why that is necessary, because, I mean, I'm riding along on the way here today. I rode my bicycle in and I saw my neighbor and I waved with one hand at my neighbor. And if that would be a ticket. In theory, it would be a ticket if the bylaw was enacted. I know I'm really nitpicking on this situation, but it says it in the bylaw, so I'm kind of just nitpicking what the bylaw says. And I looked into it a little bit, and it came from the city of Brampton. It was approved in 2011 by Brampton, and I just feel we shouldn't be looking at a car-centric city for our cycling regulations and kind of looking to the future for active transportation. We shouldn't be using Brampton as an example for that. Okay. And the other thing too is actually I looked in the Highway Traffic Act, and there's no requirement for drivers of 5,000-pound vehicles capable of 150, 160 kilometers an hour to keep both hands on the steering wheel. It's recommended for best practice, but it's not a law. So I don't think there should be a bylaw that says a little cyclist, should keep both hands on the handlebars. It seems counterintuitive to me.
Very good. We can take that under advisement.
Okay. And then another one here, Section 9.7, says persons operating bicycles upon a roadway shall ride in single file. Now, again, I understand probably from a safety point of view of not taking up too much lane of an active roadway. But again, if you're in a large vehicle, you're taking up a lot more roadway than 2 people on bicycles side by side. I'm going to use the example of a parent and a child. A parent and a child want to ride to the park together, and they might want to ride side by side. Bylaw says they can't.
Matthew, you know they don't do that.
I guess I might be the only cyclist in town.
They don't do that. Nobody's going to ride dual on a road. You're going to ride single file.
Side by side.
Yeah, we'll take it under advisement.
I just think if
candidly, that's I'm running the meeting. That's silly.
Okay, all right, that's fine. And then I wanted to mention Section 9.12, where it says no roller skates or skateboards upon the roadway. And again, I think that's restricting. It's a little too restrictive of something that's known as micro mobility or micro transportation, where you can get around town fairly well in short distances using a skateboard or using rollerblades. I haven't rollerbladed in a while, but on a skateboard it can be done. And I think just limiting them to a sidewalk, and there's streets in town that don't have sidewalks, I think they should be allowed on the road, just have a blurb in there about being as close to the right as possible, just the same as cycling. So I think that could be amended. And again,
Very
my
good.
comment earlier, I wanted to clarify about the cyclists, the bicycles with both hands on the handlebars and feet on the pedals. Again, something could probably be amended in there just to say, bicyclists should be operating in a safe manner, something like that, rather than just specifically say 2 hands on the handlebar.
Okay, very good. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Ugolini, did you want to chat about this?
Well, good evening, council and staff. I Googled, what is the purpose of a roadway? And at no point did it mention it's for parking. And stay. And that's my opinion on that. Like, I Googled it, okay? I guess any fool can Google stuff. But anyway, it didn't mention parking. Bicycles, pedestrian, and vehicles. Anyway, community safety zone. I'd like to ask a question about community safety zone. It says schools, hospitals, parks, and et cetera. What's et cetera?
What do you mean? Where can a safety zone?
That's what it said up on the screen.
A safety zone can be employed anywhere that council determines they'd like to have a safety zone.
But what's an et cetera?
It's anywhere. I just shared that. We can put it anywhere that council determines that we need to have a safety zone, we can put it. Yeah. Did you have another question, Mr. Ugolini?
Dawson Road. Dawson Road has signs, no heavy trucks. And Cedar Drive, which is where I live, we see all the heavy trucks. Is there any reason why a little street like Cedar Drive has all the heavy trucks, and Dawson, which is nice and straight and wide and clear, no heavy trucks? Any reasoning for that?
Mr. Koslak, did you want to comment on that at all?
We'll take a look at it, but I guess from an access point, there are some local businesses, they'd be coming in that way, probably from the bypass, but we weren't aware of the issue, and we can take a look at it.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Do you have anything further, Rick?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. If there's no further questions, at this time, I will see if there's any questions or comments. I'm sorry? I missed one? Oh, I'm sorry. Come on back up.
I'm so sorry, I know I've already got my time. May I?
Yes, please.
Just Jackie Lilly again, 223 Thompson Road, Orangeville, Ontario.
Sure.
Your point to the previous speaker, it's a perfect example. He has 2-car driveway, he has a garage, and
Can you
out of
just
sight,
bring
out
your,
of sight, out of mind.
can you just bring your?
sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Out of sight, out of mind. And it speaks to Angel Lisigio's socioeconomic status point too. People just, if I have good parking, it's just not in my mind to think of, I guess, other people's situations. And also to Mr. Smith's point, Councillor Sir, the enforcement side of this it's even more cogent. At the end of the day, these are laws because they're laws. 24 hours and 1 minute is going to get you a ticket. Even if you are looking for the car that parks on my street, you probably all know it, that has been there for 3 months. All this speaks to, and I'll wrap it up right here, is the need for a medical or needs-based exemptions. And I find it, I must entreat you, Mr., I forgive my pronunciation, my last name's Deleuze? Yes. To consider something along those lines. And not carte blanche, not go nuts, park all summer, but something fair and equitable so, everyone gets a fair shake. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Deleuze, did you want to quickly comment on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Taylor. And to your point, there is a section that gives the General Manager of Infrastructure Services the ability to create those requirements. We're certainly not for a minute saying that we should create, unnecessary requirements and allow people and start charging for people. We're not saying that at all. But to Mr. Bramley's point, we do have the ability in the bylaw. We wanted council to consider that so that staff have the opportunity to create that, bring it back to council, and then establish something. Again, if council directs us to do that, we certainly are happy to do that.
Thank you, and thank you for hearing me out.
Very good. Thank you for being here. Before I turn it to council, Mayor Post, you wanted to weigh in?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make a quick point to council that I have had your request to speak shut off, so you can just turn on your own mic to make ease of the meeting a little easier. Before I did that, though, Councillor McIntosh was in queue to speak first.
Oh, very good. Okay. And Mr. Smith, did you want to weigh? You'll wait? Okay. Very good. Councillor McIntosh, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments, listening to all the speakers. First of all, thank you to staff for that report, that bylaw. It's very in-depth and long, and a lot of work went into it, I'm sure. The 24 hours, I feel, should be changed to maybe 48 at a minimum. That's just my thoughts. The word permits was mentioned. I hate permits because it takes up a lot of staff time. And we don't have the staff to keep track of permits for parking. I know Brampton, there's no parking on any street in Brampton, as far as I know, unless you have a permit. Well, they have a budget for that, and they have a lot of staff working on that. We don't have that luxury, so I don't like permit idea. The suggestion about the fire hydrants, I thought was a great idea. And I know when I was fire chief, Public Works was great. If I went to the Public Works director and said, there's a lot of hydrants that need cleaning, they always put staff on it. So it does get done. There's a lot of hydrants in town, so it does take a while, but great suggestion to put this somewhere in this bylaw about putting snow on the hydrants. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor McIntosh. We've got Councillor Andrews, and then Councillor Stevens, and then Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Councillor McIntosh has expressed, this is a thorough presentation to council, a lot of reading, and again, I want to thank all the staff that are involved. A lot of thought has gone into it, and more thought, no doubt, will be going into it. For the general public, as you've had the opportunity to provide your input, this is also our opportunity to express any thoughts that we have. And prior to this meeting, I've had the opportunity to circulate some questions to members of staff. And so for the sake of not boring anyone, I wanted to zero in on a couple of sections here. And this is primarily looking at motor-assisted bicycles, bicycle wheelchairs, e-scooters, or what I call T-bar scooters. For those of us who live in town, and for those of you that may remember from our previous term, this was something that I had brought forward at the council meeting, and in fact, it was, I guess, discussed to bring it internally for further discussion. We had some other things that took place in our society known as COVID, and so it kind of not that necessarily fell off the radar, but it was kind of pushed back. Having said that, for those of us who've lived in this community, we've noticed a increase on a number of e-scooters, and I'm not referring to e-bikes. There is a differentiation between e-bikes and e-scooters. And what I've noticed is an importance of some form of, and not using the term regulation, but looking at some way of educating people about the use of these. And as it's clearly identified in this proposed bylaw, and again, this is what this public discussion is all about for additional input, there are a number of young people and adults who are using our sidewalks, especially downtown. I know that Chair Taylor, you sit on the BIA board, and I've spoken to a number of the businesses, and a number of sidewalks throughout our community are in fact now kind of a thoroughfare for e-scooters. And I'm wondering how we can end up going through the process of educating individuals who are using these, not only on sidewalks, but also on roads, on appropriate speed, usage, helmet usage. For the sake of transparency, I know that our police board chair is also Chair Taylor, and coincidentally, this particular item also was being discussed this past week at the police board meeting. There has been a significant increase of those that are dropping by the emergency department at Headwaters Hospital because of injuries. There's an absence of this being, in fact, addressed at the school level. Thank goodness our Optimist Club are, in fact, through their bike rodeo, are providing safety protocol and safety training, but it has an omission of e-scooters. I'm wondering if this is an opportunity as part of this dialogue to possibly consider some form of education. And I think more than anything else, I'd just like to see if there's a way that we can convince the general public, as much as now it's the thing to get your 12-year-old kid or younger. I saw an 8-year-old boy that was driving an e-scooter before this meeting tonight, no helmet, and must have been going a little bit faster than I was in a 40K zone. That's how fast some of these things can go. And if, something just unfortunately happens, a kid darts out, or as I explained to members of staff, I had a member of the general public who contacted me who was really upset because the reason that they called me was the fact that they were backing out of their driveway, and if they didn't have a rear view camera, they wouldn't have seen the e-scooter rider driving by, and it could have been catastrophic. I don't want to have an accident happen before we do something about it. So, Mr. Bramley, Mr. Deleuze, I'm not sure how we can kind of look at this, but since we're in the public meeting, this is one of the things that I'm really, really concerned about, and if we can somehow embed some wording into the bylaw or look at it even more holistically from an education perspective, I would think that that would be really, really helpful.
Just to our public works friends, I don't know that you need to comment. I think it's just something you're looking at and considering. Would that be fair? And thank you, Councillor Andrews, for bringing that forward. That'd be okay. Very
Great.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stevens, you're up.
Thank you. 3 quick areas. One, I completely agree with Councillor McIntosh. I think it should be a little longer than 24 hours, minimum 48. I also live in Montgomery Village. Parking is a mess, no matter what street you're on up there. Tony and I have had many discussions on that whole entire area. And I'm sure there's other pockets in town as well, but we hear you, and we're focusing on that area. That's one of the areas. Section 28, the heavy truck. I have a question for bylaw. How are you going to manage that? Like, you can't pull over trucks, and so if you could help me there.
Mr. Bramley?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Again, when it comes to heavy traffic, you make the point correct. Bylaw authority does not have the authority to pull over a moving vehicle. We cannot enforce moving violations. This is a part of where we do need to work with our partners with the OPP, as they do have the authority to enforce our local bylaws as well. So putting this in place in our bylaw grants them the authority to also enforce it. So on a complaint based, that's how we can manage that. But again, a bylaw officer cannot come up behind a heavy vehicle going down the road and flash a little set of lights in the hopes that they stop for us, unfortunately. But that's where we have communications and connections with the OPP to help facilitate that and working on blitzes and collaborations.
Perfect, thank you. And then just one more.
Please.
And this, again, to Mr. Deleuze, I really like the accessibility parking part of the bylaw. Can you just expand on why we don't put in private areas in our bylaw? I think the public needs a little education on that part. If you could, and I'm putting you on the spot, sorry, but.
No, not at all. Thank you, Chair Taylor. To Councillor Stevens, you're not putting me on the spot at all. I'm going to defer to Mr. Bramley because he's educated me on this and he can speak a lot better. So James, if you could, please.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. When we're speaking about accessible parking, we do enforce on private property as well as fire routes. The conversation of enforcement on private property in the scope of work and the administrative burden that comes with that, as it's been addressed for other things such as permitting and that further discussion, to enforce further parking outside of provincially mandated and provincially regulated restrictions such as accessible and fire routes puts an onus on the staff, as well as working collaborations with all private properties to ensure that all signage is placed up appropriately, written agreements with all private properties, and signed agreements with every person in care and control of the properties, and to have them come out to manage that as well. So enforcing the parking aspects on private property is a much larger scope, and realistic staffing is a large challenge to address at this time. Private properties do have the right to enforce parking. That being said, they do not connect with the MTO for the purpose of plate denial and accessing that information. It would be a private enforcement outside of the authority of the municipality.
And I'd just like to say thank you for that explanation. As chair of the Access Orangeville Committee, it's on our agenda almost every month. And, we're very limited in what we can act upon. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you to you, through you, Chair. Mr. DeLuce, in the presentation, I wanted clarification on, I think it was under the heavy trucks, there was mention of commercial vehicles. Can you educate me that commercial vehicles, is it a certain weight or type? Because I'm visualizing now with one side of the street parking, independent business owners, whether it be lawn maintenance or whatever, might have like a commercial van with a trailer, and they park on the road at night and then go off through the day to do their business. Same as service vehicles that people might work for Enbridge and bring that commercial vehicle home at night. Is it, like I'm trying to read through section 26, 27, and 28 where it's mentioned in your slide, and I don't see anything exempt. It doesn't include those type of commercial vehicles, does it? Like that they're not allowed to be on the roads?
Mr. Jalees.
Through you, Chair Taylor, to the councillor, it does not specifically include the Enbridges of the world, but certainly it does include vehicles that are partners with the corporation. For example, the County of Dufferin fire trucks, not that anybody would bring a fire truck home, but it does include, a plow type vehicle as well. So we certainly have a list that we can go by, but certainly it goes to, sorry. Sorry? Excuse me, just 1 second here. We're just going to. Oh, did I miss? Okay, sorry. Just bear with me 1 second. I apologize. You're referring to parking of large vehicles on streets in residential zones specifically? Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry, I misinterpreted your question. So 41.1, large vehicle may be parked on a street in a residential zone if it is a vehicle used for personal travel, vacation, or recreation. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to commercial properties, commercial trucks for businesses, whether it be independent business. What I'm asking is, does that mean they're not allowed to park on the road? Like, let's take Enbridge, for example.
Right.
An employee brings home that service vehicle. That, to me, is considered a commercial truck.
Correct.
No?
We would consider that. And again, I look to Mr. Bramley, but that's my understanding as well, too, that would be considered a commercial vehicle if it's over 4,500 kilograms, as defined on page 7 of the bylaw under definitions. Heavy 2.27, heavy truck means the following. So certainly we would consider that a commercial vehicle, yes.
Which means it's not allowed to be parked on the road.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. We're probably going to hear from people that probably have some private businesses. I'm thinking of like landscapers, construction contractors that will park it on the street at night. But anyhow, again, it's all going to be just complaint driven. Can I ask my next question?
Please.
So the next question, I didn't see anything mentioned here. In the right-of-ways, any commercial signs that people are putting on the right-of-ways, like, to clean your gutters or buy some blinds and stuff like that, is that covered here at all, or is that all in our sign bylaw about pushing commercial business little signs on the right-of-way? Is that the...
That's correct. Through you, Chair Taylor, if I could, that is included in our sign bylaw, but it is also included in this bylaw under fouling of the right-of-way. I know which signs you mean. You're referring to the sandwich board signs that are placed on light standards that are taped heavily and we can't seem to get them off. Absolutely. So it is covered off in the bylaw.
Oh,
it's also covered off in fouling of the right-of-way.
Fouling of the roadway. Okay. And one more quick one, and hopefully I'll be done. I visualize in front of my property. I don't have a sidewalk in front of my property, so the curb is in the roadway is the town's. How far in is the town property into my on my private property. Is it standard for every residential property throughout town that it's so many meters or feet?
Through you, Chair Taylor, Councillor Sherwood, the short answer is they're all different. I know where you live, so I'm certainly not going to mention that, but certainly in your situation, from the back of the curb to the property line is approximately 5 meters, 16 or so feet. So the right-of-way typically in the areas that you're in is 20 meters wide, which is the old chain of 66 feet or 33 feet from the center of the road.
So where I'm going for this is in winter control. If someone had too many vehicles for their driveway, I've seen people like drive up kind of off their driveway on the town boulevard, and that would be a ticketable offense, correct?
The short answer to that is yes, if they're parked on the boulevard.
Thank you.
If I may, if I could defer maybe to bylaw, but I think the answer to that depends. And it depends on whether or not if you were parking on the end, as I understand it, if you are infringing upon the lawn on either side or the sidewalk on either side, then you'll get a ticket. If you're fortunate enough that you can actually park on that boulevard and your vehicle stays in that boulevard, even though you're parked the opposite way, then God bless, enjoy yourself. You can do that. But
Well said. Exactly.
Okay, very good. Councillor Sherwood, are you, okay, very good. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you. I have 3 comments just to put on public record, not so much questions. In terms of the accessible parking permit, I see it as permit holders have already met a threshold that has been set by the province. And often we ask people who require accessible accommodations to jump through more hoops and do more paperwork than others. I would venture, or just to put on public record, that we consider no permits and just blanket exemption for accessible parking permit holders from this new bylaw. That would be one thing I would suggest. Number 2, we should be careful of unintended consequences of limiting parking. We've been restrictive with good reason, but it could have a bit of a drawback as residents start to apply to convert their grass into non-permeable surfaces to expand their driveways. So it could impact stormwater management and also the ability for our aquifers to recharge. Just something to think about. And number 3, the trailway was mentioned. And then it was mentioned something about motorized vehicles. Within Orangeville, an urban setting, I am firmly against motorized vehicles on any trail within the town boundaries. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Did you want any comments, or we're just good? No. You just made your statement, and that's it. Okay. I'll turn it over to Mayor Post at this time.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I have a few as well. So first, when I read the bylaw, I have to say it was really long, really loaded. There's a lot in there, and it almost felt like it should be 2 bylaws. It almost felt like parking should be its own bylaw, and everything else in the right-of-way be something else. So maybe it's right-of-way parking bylaw and right-of-way everything else, only because I think when it comes to the parking component, that's the big one for the residents, and I think a lot of the information about the parking got lost in a really long bylaw otherwise. I think it's a bit of a challenge to navigate through the bylaw to understand exactly where the restrictions are, and there's a lot of jumping around to have to understand what is permissible and what is not. With that as well, the 24 hours to me right away was flagged to me as being too short. I think it's not necessarily addressing the problem that we're trying to solve, and I know a few people have already said that from the gallery. We do have to have something in there. I know that there was someone who said, by putting this in, you're punishing everybody, but if we don't put a time limit, whatever that might be, then we don't have any mechanism to deal with it, and that's what we're dealing with now. So currently, we do get a lot of complaints where, there is, as Alan said, there's a vehicle that's been parked in front of a home for 4 months and nobody can do anything about it because it is still licensed, it has a plate on it, it's active, it's not dilapidated, there's no flat tire, so it's fine other than it's been parked there. So there's no mechanism within any bylaw right now. So I do think we have to have a time restriction. I do think 24 hours is too short. My gut right away said it should probably be 72. That was the number that jumped into my head right away. I do see the argument for it being 7 days as well, but to me, I think 72 hours is reasonable, and that will help us to solve the problem that we're actually trying to solve, where it's not the people who are parked there for 24 hours and have the flu and can't go out and move their car. That's not the people we're targeting. It is the people who are leaving their vehicles in one spot for weeks at a time and being disrespectful to their neighbors. That's the problem that we're really looking at. So like I said, to me, 72 hours or 7 days or something would be what I would think would be right. Also, with the way that the bylaw is written, I wouldn't have necessarily found the 24-hour component unless it was in your slideshow as it was. I found that was difficult to navigate, and I think in the final version of the bylaw, I think whatever time limit we land on has to be really clearly articulated in the bylaw, because right now it's not. If it weren't for the fact that it was in your slideshow, as I said, I probably wouldn't have seen that blanket restriction. So I think it's important that that's really clearly articulated. As I said at the beginning of my comments, that the right-of-way parking and kind of right-of-way everything else, a few things that would fall in the everything else for me would be things like PXOs, the half loads, the construction permits, blocking intersections. Those kinds of things seem very separate than the parking restrictions. And to me, that should almost be separate or maybe condensed better in the bylaw. I'm not sure what the best way to navigate that is. The last piece that I did write down, because I did also mention e-bikes and e-scooters because we talked about it in our OPP board meeting last week, is, I think that we do have to have some sort of restriction of those things on sidewalks. That's where it's becoming problematic. And on the flip side, we do mention that we don't want skateboards on the roadway, but I would say I get more complaints about skateboards being on sidewalks. So that to me was a bit of a flag right away that maybe we shouldn't be restricting those specifically skateboards being on roadways, because they are problematic, as scooters are when they're interfering with pedestrian right-of-way. And I think that's all I've got.
Very good.
And I'm happy if anybody wants to answer any of those things that I've brought up, but.
Did you want commentary, or?
If there is any, I'm happy to.
Staff, Tony, please.
Certainly, thank you, Chair Taylor. To you, Mayor Post, just as a point of clarity, we're happy to take back any recommendations you make on the time frame. I tried to scribble down my notes, so I'm having trouble with my own writing. But certainly, I'm happy to take back anything that the council directs us to do, whether that's 48 or 72 hours. We're happy to take that back. With respect to the bylaw and the name of the bylaw, would a different name be something that you would consider? What we were thinking is, we understand that a lot of people don't know the right-of-way. That's why we started off with that slide, and I thought Brandon did a good job of explaining it. Would something to the effect of traffic management be a better solution? And the reason that I ask this, and we'll certainly take it back, we'll take all your direction and suggestions, but we were thinking that if that is a better name, the name still works. Traffic management, we'll drop right away if that's problematic, and certainly do that. And we're certainly happy to split it if that's the direction that we get. But certainly we wanted to kind of stress that it was kind of one point led into another. So it became very evident very early that it was an all-encompassing bylaw, because as we sat around the tables with the different departments, and Mr. Ondusco's Public Works as well, is they started to ask, what about this? What about this? What about this? So that's why it grew. And again, we try to be as certainly as thorough as we could, but we certainly recognize that it is a bylaw. The other component of it is, and perhaps Mr. Bramley wants to speak to this as well, is that administratively as well as enforcement-wise, the bylaw officers go to one document, they read through it, and they certainly know, they get to learn and know it, but we can certainly make things clear always. We're looking for suggestions to make things clearer. So those are the only commentaries that I wanted to bring to your attention for your consideration before you provide us with more direction.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Mayor Post, were you?
If I could,
yeah.
just to respond to that, I'm okay with it staying all together. I'm thinking of it as a resident trying to navigate our website, and our website isn't the friendliest on a good day. So, if I were a new resident to town trying to figure out where I can and can't park, I'm going to go to the town's website and I'm going to type in parking bylaw. And what's going to come up? Is it going to be that the right-of-way management bylaw is going to come up? because that's what's going to be important. Because what residents are going to be looking for is a good understanding of what's permitted and what's not. And I think that it will get lost a little bit with the way that it's written now. So I just think that that needs to be really clear. Maybe there's a separate part of the website that really speaks to parking specifically, where it's easy to navigate, because a lot of the stuff that's in here won't apply to everyday residents, but the parking stuff really will. So I think it's really important that residents be able to navigate through and understand what they can and can't do with regards to parking in front of their house and things like that.
Very good. Message delivered. Thank you very much, Mayor Post. I'll just be, CAO Smith, did you want to speak? My apologies. You're good? Okay. Just ever so quickly, a few thoughts. It would be great if we could have a meeting or a 15-minute powwow about Rayburn and the back alleys and just talk. I think it's urgent that we address that. The resident was quite passionate, and I think we owe getting back. So I think that would be a big follow-up out of this meeting. I wanted to say to the Public Works team, I love the fact that we also brought in snow on the roadways. And for me, snow on the roadways, in other words, someone shoveling their driveway and putting the snow on the roadway, is very similar to someone parking for a long period of time in front of someone's house or taking space. And why I would correlate the two is it's just insensitive of people, and it's infringing upon everyone else. And that's what I really wanted to get at. And just for all my council compadres here, the idea of extending the time, I'm fine with it. I think that's fine. If it's 72, I think that's fine. If we talk about a different time period, I think that's fine. I just think we need to have something. And where we are now is not working well. So really great discussion. I thank everybody in the gallery. I know a few people had to leave, but this is what democracy is, and we all get great ideas and find out what we're going to get to because we all feed into something, and I think everybody did a great job here tonight. So thank you, everyone. So the formality is, Councillor Stevens, so we're trying to wrap up here. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll be quick.
Go ahead.
I just want to jump on my colleague to your right. I think the trailway shouldn't be motorized. I mean, a battery scooter for sure for accessibility reasons, but I really think that should be put in there that, no motorized vehicles on the lane or the trails. And I agree with you on the laneways. My house has a back laneway. It is chaotic to get in and out.
Okay.
And the only thing I'd like to add, especially for Montgomery Village, is for Public Works. Sometimes the sidewalk plow beats the main plow out, opposite. Sometimes the sidewalk plow puts the snow back on the road. I don't have a boulevard, so to speak. My sidewalk is directly right beside the curb, and the snow goes back on the road. Then it freezes, causes a lot more issues for people trying to get in and out. So just food for thought.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Steve. Go ahead, Councillor Sir. No, I'm excited you want to talk, so go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll try and make this quick. Is there any mention in here, Mr. Deleuze, where we're talking about snow on the roads? We are on the season now where we've got lots of leaves falling. Is there anything in this bylaw about not putting leaves? I know a lot of people blow leaves to the boulevard, but I've actually seen people blow leaves to the road, which really worries me because they cover up the catch basins, right? So is there anything in this bylaw about leaves?
Mr. Deleuze?
What a great question, Mr. Chair. To my recollection, I don't believe that there is, but we'll certainly take something back. And if the direction is to look at that, we'll certainly be happy to do that. Perhaps Mr. Ondusco can speak to this from an operational standpoint, but my recollection is that all leaves are to be bagged and brought to the front, but certainly I'd like to defer to my colleague if I could, if you will, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ondusco?
Through you, Mayor Post. Leaf and yard waste collections, a Dufferin County function. They pay our time and materials for leaf and yard waste collection, but we actually don't have our own funding for that sort of program. Right now, we do it as long as Dufferin County continues to pay for it, but we actually wouldn't have the funds if they decided not to in the future. And then it would be up for residents to simply bag their leaf and yard waste.
So just as a point of clarity to the comment that was said, and that is that we have a bag program. I think the desired state is that we would all bag, but we don't just have a bag program, right? We do have a collection, and it's not in all areas of town, like as a point of clarity, and maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, Mr. Lease, but.
It's an entirely Dufferin County funded program, so we typically target the mature areas. It's very rare we get through the entirety of the town because it takes so long for us to go through 130 kilometers of road, both sides. We typically use a dump truck and a backhoe, maybe a skid steer if we have equipment availability. The problem that we have is, especially the last 2 winters, is by the time the leaves drop, we tend to get snow 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yes.
It takes us about 9-10 weeks to properly get to every area of town. And the equipment we use to haul leaf and yard waste out of town is the equipment that we need for snow removal. So typically, once we see snow removal on the forecast, it takes us 1 to 2 weeks to start getting that equipment set up, our sanders calibrated and whatnot, and that's the no turning back point. I think it's probably been 4 or 5 years since we've actually completed an entire round through the entire town for leaf and yard waste removal. It's simply very rarely possible for us to do it. But Dufferin County pays all of our time and material for that program right now.
Yep, very good. This is becoming an omnibus bill. Councillor Sherwood.
So through you, Chair, so I would like it if you can maybe consider and have a look at that, only because I live on one of the streets where there's a lot of leaves and they do bag, but I've noticed a lot of people will blow them to the boulevard in anticipation of the leaf blower coming around. But in some cases, they're actually going right out on the roadway. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
Very good. Last call. Okay. So at this time, the motion as written in the agenda is that council receive report INS 2025-048, right-of-way management bylaw public meeting information report for information. Can I have a motion to do that? Councillor Stevens? Councillor Prendergast? All in favor? Very good. And at this time, I'll turn the meeting back over to Mayor Post. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll move straight into bylaws. The recommendation is that the confirming bylaw for the September 22nd public meeting be read 3 times and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Andrews, all in favor? And that is carried. We are adjourned. Thanks for joining us tonight.